I stopped the car at the side of the road. I watched my girlfriend try to hang on until the end of the phone call. Whoever was on the other end mercifully cut it short. She put down the phone and looked at me with wide eyes, shimmering wet. My parents are dead. I had feared it was something like this, but I couldn't come up with anything to say. She let the tears come, and I held her hand. About a week later, we went to check out the house. Cassie's parents had owned an old farmhouse, sitting alone in a simple garden, by a street that had been there before the age of cars. Cassie had spent her entire childhood here. By the time she was around, all the animals and land around the house had been sold, and all farming rooms repurposed into sheds for gardening tools, or a guest room for when Aunt Lisa came visiting from the city for a weekend. I could see that knowing it empty removed any homely feeling from this place for Cassie. She held her arms crossed awkwardly and stood in place a lot. It's like she didn't want to touch any part of the house. I brought in a stack of boxes while she just stood by the door in the kitchen, not moving a single step further in. We had boxes for things she wanted to keep, stuff to sell in flea markets, and for stuff to get rid of right away. We actually managed to sort it out fairly fast. The house was big and had collected many things, but there wasn't much Cassie was overly attached to that she didn't already take with her when she moved out, or things we already got our own copy of, like knives and forks. The attic was another thing though. Back when this was a farm, hay was collected here. Now there was just stacks of boxes like we had in the entrance now, which would take some more time to sort through. At the top of the box pile, we found seasonal home decorations, Christmas lights and the like, stuff you'll pull out each year, so that's why it was most accessible. Beneath that were a collection of old cowboy novels. Apparently her dad collected those at some point. One box just had a stack of blank papers. Someone probably made a poor decision with where to store these and forgot about it. There was one box with old empty picture frames that haven't aged well. The rest of the attic was equally mundane. Eventually we were down to 3 boxes at the far end and decided to have a drink. The air up there was rather dusty and our throats have gotten sore. For a moment we let it be quiet in the attic. I could see Cassie felt more comfortable in her old home now. Seeing the place stripped down had its own sense of sorrow, but she forced a smile. We heard a cracking sound. My first association was a bird. I thought one might have found a hole in the roof and thought this to be a good dry place to make home. We stood still, waiting for it to be heard again. The second time I heard it, I could tell it wasn't an animal sound. It was a mechanical one, but also human, like an old phonograph playing a recording of someone moaning. It was hard to say. It sounded neither distressed, pained or anything. A human voice, making no sound in particular. You hear that too, right? Cassie squeaked. I got up and approached the 3 boxes. I eventually found the perp, an old paper phone, among the old baby stuff. It made me feel a bit assured at first, but then I remembered baby phones don't just play random recordings. They played whatever noise was on the other end. I couldn't find the counterpiece in the box, or in the 2 other boxes. I looked back at Cassie, thinking of how to break the news, but she already figured out what I discovered. If I remember right, those old things only had a short range, had nothing to say, allowing for the choppy relay to play undisturbed. It was like a baby babbling, but it wasn't a voice of a baby, nor an adult really, a young teen maybe. I've been standing still, as if to hide from something that could only see movement. It was hard to break out of the paralysis, and it felt like a big mistake to do it, but I managed to walk over to Cassie. This is only one way, right? You can't hear us on its end, I whispered. Cassie shook her head. You weren't supposed to talk back to the baby. These aren't walkie-talkies. She tried to act cool. I could tell she's been glued to the floor as well ever since hearing it. I pulled her up to break her stasis. What should we do? She asked. We've been here all day, and it's not found us. I think she could get down, into the car, and call the police. If it comes out, we'll drive right off. Whatever this is, it can't be faster than the car. Sounds good. I could tell Cassie dreaded leaving the attic. It was mostly empty now, with nowhere to hide. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't here. The attic felt safe. "I'll go first," I said. The attic was reached with a fold-up ladder, and the crappy thing about that is you have to face the ladder when climbing down. The piece of wood that would neatly hide the ladder on the ceiling when folded up blocked the view, so you only got to look around the room once you've reached the end. I was shaking as I climbed into the hole in the floor, which threw off my balance. I had planned to rush down as fast as possible, but my legs felt stiff. Once I reached the ground, I looked around with my back to the nearest wall. No one around, the voice still babbled on. I gave the silent thumbs up, and Cassie followed me. We rushed down the stairs and outside. I fumbled out my car keys while we ran, and I was glad I got a car that could unlock the doors by a press of a button. I hopped into the driver's seat, while Cassie didn't take the time to go around the car and jumped onto the back seats. As soon as the doors were closed, I locked them, pressed the button twice more, hearing that reassuring click on all 4 doors. Our eyes stuck on the house. We waited for something to come running at us. Something horrible and ungodly. Nothing happened. I took out my phone, but hesitated to call. After all, we've seen nothing. Maybe we were just overreacting, making fools of ourselves. The baby phone had fallen silent. We must have gotten out of reach. We sat in the car for a good while, trying to make sense of this. The silence of the baby phone reassured us that whatever we heard was real. It wasn't close. The more time passed, the sillier we felt. Eventually we decided to leave the car. I kept the baby phone on me, just to be sure, but it never picked anything up again. We left the remaining 3 boxes in the attic be, and just loaded up 2 boxes of stuff Cassie wanted to keep into the car. We locked the door behind us and decided to deal with the rest another day. It was already beginning to get dark, and even though we agreed that we freaked out over nothing, we didn't want to stay here until night. We lived a half an hour away, and Cassie fell asleep along the way. I left the boxes in the car and instead carried her inside. I placed her on our bed. She must have been real exhausted not to wake up during all that. With her asleep, I decided to call it a day as well. I just dumped my jacket on a chair in our bedroom and crawled into bed with her. I woke up around 3 AM. I was half asleep until I could finally recognise the sound that woke me up. It came from the pocket of my jacket. I was breathing heavy, and I could hear me through the baby phone.
It was evening. There was no day and night cycle in space, but we kept our sleep schedules intact as best we could. We had finished dinner and were playing cards in the community room. To be honest, I was looking forward to going back to Earth, to my favorite Italian, or get the new console that was released a few months ago. Getting to a space station was an elaborate process, so they don't shoot you up there just for a weekend. Gotta make it count. It's a mission only few people ever get to take, but even with space travel to novelty wears off after a while. Even being in an environment completely unavailable for all but a fraction of a percent of all known living creatures, one that comes with the alien sensation of zero gravity, eventually becomes dull, everyday life in a cramped space with the same 11 people. Of course, we were all friends, but there was a difference between having friends and being among people. It's hard to ever shake the feeling of knowing there was no one out there. These 11 people were all you had. That's not something you get on Earth. You never had this level of difficulty just running into other people there. I was unsure if it's because if something were to happen here, you couldn't call for help, at least none that would arrive in a reasonable time, or it was just a facet of loneliness. "You wanna play, Mahi?" Kim must have noticed me staring forlorn onto the increasing pile of cards, though I've stopped actually seeing them long ago. "No, I'm just watching." It was Kim's idea to play cards by pinning them down with a magnet. She was one of the people who had been up here before. Being aware of my surroundings again, I looked around. Esther was reading a book on the couch fridge under a blanket. The guy had actually put stones in it, thinking it would weight it down. His first time up here too. NASA was rather relaxed with the stuff we bring up here nowadays. Chris' dartboard was the only thing they raised a fuss about, but allowed it in the end. In 2021, someone smuggled something onto the station that led to some important discoveries, so now they greenlight all sort of crap in hopes of replacing that. Of course, I use that to bring mostly sentimental items. I really feared I would start feeling like shit up here. There would be no easy way to back out once I'm here, so I wanted to maximize the chances to pull me through. Safe to say, no groundbreaking discoveries yet. Just some experiments. Mostly, we were just up here so someone could keep maintenance on the station. For any serious research, they would send up some more experienced people. "Have you seen Amy?" Henry asked me. I was too spaced out to notice where she went. "Went to sleep," Kim answered for me. "Back on Earth, she never slept before midnight," he grumbled before floating off. I didn't realize they had been friends back on Earth. They didn't seem to have much in common. Well, they ended up in the same workplace, I remind myself. The communication system beeped and crackled. "Hey, I'm done out here. Someone opens the air clock." I looked at Chris, who was the guy usually handling the air clock. He got kind of anxious when other people fiddled with the technology without his surveillance. It's something we had to humor. He just stood there though. I wondered what the problem was. He then floated over to the comm device and asked, "Who's out there?" "It's me, Henry. Remember? You told me to fix the wiring out here because the connection got a bit faulty." Chris looked at Henry, whose eyes alternated between him and the device. "Dude," the electronic voice said. "The connection was fine. We all knew if there was a problem out there, Chris would have fixed it himself. We all just stood paralyzed where we were." I noticed Henry gesturing to me, Chris too. Then I gathered I should check who was out there. I didn't really get it yet. I just reasoned it was someone else of the team out there. Why they claimed to be Henry, I didn't question. The control center was close to the recreational room everyone but Amy was in. I opened the program connected to the camera system. It claimed connectivity issues on each one. I started to feel something sinister was going on. The fact I couldn't run in zero gravity started to upset me. I returned to the rec room and just shook my head. I was too anxious to communicate audibly. "Hey, can you stop fucking around and let me in? Are you sure you fixed the wiring? It's not working yet." "You just said it was fine." "Yeah, sorry, we just double checked. The wiring's perfect, maybe the problem is elsewhere. Inside?" I could see Chris struggle to stall any longer. I didn't know what we were even stalling for. Finally, Henry pushed him aside. "Hey, Henry, here. Could you stop messing with us?" "What do you mean? I'm right here. Quite the bullshit already. I'm starting to freak out here." Kim came into the room carrying Amy. All 11 people were present inside the community room. Henry pushed Chris. "You aren't pulling a goof on us here, right? You know how panics can get out of hand, right? Do I look 12? How the fuck would I do this anyway? Are you saying there is a ghost at the door?" Henry reported. Maybe, Kim started. "Maybe the common is malfunctioning and playing old messages. It doesn't record anything we say into it, and even if I would hardly be able to have a conversation with it. I swear this is why I'm not letting you near technology." The common device started to crackle louder. Guys, I swear I will strangle you all. Be grateful if NASA will keep employing you as janitors after this shit. Are you kidding me? Well, either you cut the shit or we're just gonna ignore you. What are you gonna do? You childish piece of shit. Chris went to get a snack from the minibar. Alright, if every one of you is waiting for me to become impressed by this, I'm not gonna be, he said between bites. I could tell his ease was played. But he was right. There was no reason for us to open the airlock. Everyone was here. Right? Can we please all stay here? Kim asked. I would like to be able to see everyone. I think we all would rather remain among the biggest crowd we could manage. The fake Henry kept yelling for about half an hour. The distortion got so bad it was completely incomprehensible. Then he stopped, but no one owned up to the joke yet. So what was wrong with the cameras? Chris finally asked. All disconnected. This isn't a prank, is it? Kim said. Whoever's doing it just figured out it's gone. Get him fired now and hope it will resolve itself. Chris reasoned. He didn't buy it himself. Do we have windows from where you can see the air clock? Esther asked. No, no one walks off. Kim yelled loud enough to wake Amy. What? Why am I here? She asked. No one knew how to explain the situation. Hey, remember the wiring? The common crackled back to life. How about now? No one answered. Nothing yet? What about now? The lights flickered and Kim shrieked, digging her face into Amy's chest. What the hell? Was that Henry's voice? Amy asked, avoiding faces. Then the lights went out completely. We huddled tighter together so we could feel the others. Someone started crying. I couldn't tell who. Did I fix it? The voice taunted. Let me in. I swear to Christ, I don't care if they fire me for this. I'm not working with you chuckle fucks again anyway. The small green light of the common device stuck out in the dark. Stop, okay? We will let you in. Chris approached the device. Yeah? Could you turn the lights back on though? Get a flashlight. Do it yourself tomorrow. I saw Chris' face illuminated by the tiny light, looking back at us. You see, the thing is, Henry's already here. So could you explain that? What? You didn't just play some old audio. Henry, come here, say something. Henry joined Chris. Hello, Henry here. I mean, that soundbite isn't too tough to get. What's the name of my wife? The device was silent. Everyone knew that the phrase my wife was rarely uttered by Henry. Answer. I don't have a wife. What about the ring on your right hand? That's from my husband. When did you marry? We didn't yet. Why not? We didn't want to rush it and take our time once I'm back. All of that is correct, Amy confirmed. Done with your trivia quiz? Could you move to a window? I swear to people, did you all lose your goddamn minds? We need to know who you are. Hey, I know I flipped out, but just let me in and let's discuss this. I'm not going to kill you, you know me. Just do it, Chris demanded. Okay, the other Henry sounded like he was about to cry. Chris and Henry moved to a window. It was harder to see them, just their heads obscuring the occasional star. I felt someone tug my arm. I didn't pay attention who was to my left when the lights went out. Don't panic, but that isn't me, Chris whispered to me. I felt the handle of a knife in my hand. Can you do this? I wasn't sure how to answer. All I knew was that we only had disposable plastic knives. Not one like this. But maybe someone brought one. No, I would have heard, like the dartboard. I wasn't confident enough to make the call. Are you sure we should attack it? I tried to play along. Who are you whispering to, Mahi? Kim asked. I knew she would flip if I said Chris. What else could I say? The lights came back on. I found no one to my right. My hands were empty. Hey, did this fix the lights? The common asked. No one answered for a while. Hey, did my evil twin kill you all? Oh no, sorry, the lights work, thanks. Well, I'm close to the community room. Hang on. Not long after, Henry floated into view outside. He really was an exact copy of the Henry inside, down to the clothes. He put his hand on the window and I could see the ring on his finger. Will you let me in now? Chris silently shook his head. The being outside took a moment to process, then his face contorted in rage. Fuck you, I hate you. Are you just gonna let me die out here? Open the door or I swear to Christ, I'll smash a window. Can we leave? Amy asked, staring at the man floating barefoot in space. Can we drive this fucking thing? I want to leave. Hey Henry, Chris spoke to the common. Did you forget your spacesuit? I didn't plan to be out here long, shithead. It's freezing out here, okay? Did this thing think we only put on the suits because it's cold? The fake Henry didn't realize its mistake. Hey, so you know that these are lethal temperatures to human being out here, right? Chris and Henry sat back down with the group, while the fake began yelling again, slowly drifting out of view. After an hour or so, his yelling grew fainter until it stopped completely. Kim stood up to check the windows. She could see the fake floating off into the distance. It gave up. Okay, what the fuck was that? Please tell me we have some kind of footage of that, Henry said loudly. According to Mahi, all the cameras are busted, Chris said, keeping an eye on the shrinking figure. After another hour of unease, we finally went to bed thinking it was over. Only when I laid in bed and the light was out did I remember the thing that imitated Chris. But I was unsure what to do, so I remained frozen in bed with eyes open. Another hour into night, I saw something come into the room, walking on the floor, despite there being no gravity. It stopped. Are you awake, Mahi? Amy's voice asked. Yes, I answered. No point in lying. That's unfortunate. Could you try not to be? I'm afraid not. Amy stood in silence. Will you kill us? Would you mind getting out of bed? Do I have a choice? Not if you want to live. I undid the blanket holding me in place. Amy caught me to keep me from floating away. From this close I could see Amy smile. You really are stupid. Amy tore the skin off my shoulder. I pushed myself away from her. I saw the piece of my skin in her hand, big enough to cover a basketball. My back hit the bed behind me and I expected searing pain on my flayed back. None came. Don't worry, I killed it, Amy said. What? They can change shape. It attached itself to you. They can do so without you feeling a thing. But they're so stupid. You saw the one in space. So dumb. What? How? I'll have some explaining to do tomorrow. Sorry, but I'll have to wait for a call from my higher-ups on how to handle this situation. Someone fucked up big time by letting these two. What would a human call this? I promise we are nice aliens. So you aren't Amy? No, I've always been Amy. I just hid the fact I'm not fully human. Okay, that's enough info from me. Try and have some sleep, Mahi. I could see in her eyes that she was speaking the truth. Will you be okay? I asked. They aren't gonna terminate me. We are nice aliens, but I'm afraid they might station me somewhere else. So far, I haven't had my mission interfere with my personal life. You all generally are my friends. She smiled still, but was trembling. Would they do that? No, you should go to sleep, Maggie, really. I decided to finally be honest to her too. I pulled her closer and kissed her. I felt her tears on my face. She was no longer shaking when I let go. Good night, Amy. Sweet dreams. I have a phone call to make. Her tears remained floating in the room.